Welcome to this house of memory and hope. We, whose journeys are always beginning, we whose mission always awaits us, we whose visions are bent on loving, we gather together this morning. We gather as a community drawn together out of a common need, each toting our own carpet bag of treasures and dreams. We gather together seeking our own meanings, yearning for life in all its dimensions, as it challenges and expands, as it burdens, as it consoles and heals. We gather in these moments to drink from a common cup. We gather together in questions, the kinds of questions that provoke us to the path of action. We gather with hope, the kind of hope that pulses on through uncertainty. And we gather with tenderness and kindness, the kind of kindness that can only be born from knowing both imperfection and earnest effort. We gather with openness, an openness that is wakeful to possibilities and equally discerning and gentle in judgments. We gather then unbounded but close. We gather thirsting. We gather drawn to our source. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome to gather with us this day. Let us worship together and begin with our opening hymn, Just As Long As I Have Breath, number 6 in the hymnal.
Well, this is going to be not a story from a book. Today, Reverend Thomas and big folks are going to be talking about random acts of kindness. Do you know what that means? Do you know what random means? Real loud.
It means like it just happens.
Just happens. So random acts of kindness are just things that just happen. You have to think about them a little bit, but you weren't planning on doing them. That's a really good thought, isn't it? And I know you guys are really kind, and I see you doing kind things with each other all the time. And instead of a story, I wanted to tell you sort of a personal story of something that happened to me, that the kindest thing that I think that was ever done to me and my family. When I was 25, and I know it's hard to think about that I was 25. I went with my husband and my little girl who was just 8 months old, and we went off on an adventure up into the Trinity Alps, and it was snowing, and we had a trailer at the back of our car, and it was filled with then everything we owned, I think. And we went up over this really tall mountain up by Weaverville. And as we started down, we discovered we weren't going to go anywhere else because our car started slipping and sliding, and that trailer went everywhere. We got really scared. I know I was really scared. And we couldn't even pull over to the side of the road. We got over as far as we could, and we just sat there. I, of course, cried. The baby cried. My husband said, "Oh, no." And we just sat there being cold. In a few minutes, a car came up behind us, and the guy stopped, and he came over, and he goes, "You guys look like you're in trouble." And we said, "Yes, we are in big trouble." And he had four-wheel drive on his car, so he wasn't slipping and sliding. And he said, "I'm not sure why you would go over a big mountain like this in the winter, in the snow, pulling a trailer in a car like this." And we said, "Well, we didn't know any better." He was so sweet. He said, "Look, leave the keys in the car. I'll come back and deal with it. No one's taken it anywhere. And come with me." So we got in his car. We didn't know this guy. We get in the car. You start off for Weaverville. And we said, "We don't know anybody here. We don't know what we're going to do." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. My family owns a motel, and there's always empty rooms this time of year." So off we went to this motel. We go in. He introduces us to his family. They open the door to this lovely room, and he said, "Here you are. You guys make yourself comfortable. Don't worry about the car." And he took off. In a few minutes, there was a knock on the door. We went to the door, and there he was again. And he tosses some keys onto the bed, and he says, "Here's the keys to my truck. I don't want you guys to be just stuck here." And we said, "Oh, okay." So there he gave us the keys to his truck. So the next morning, we got up, we took his truck, we went and had breakfast, we came back, and we thought, now what are we going to do? And then my husband looked in the parking lot, he goes, "Wait a minute, there's our car with our trailer on it. How did it get here?" And I said, "Well, it must be that angel man." So we went in, having very little money, to the motel and said, into the office and said, "Well, we just want to thank you for the room, and we came to pay you, and how did our car get here?" And the man laughed. He said, "Oh, it's my son. He got up early this morning, went and got it for you guys because he knew you weren't going to make it up there." And we said, "Well, gee, thank you. Can we, leave some money to help him out?" "Oh, no. That's just we just do that around here. We're all friends." I'm like, "Well, they didn't know us from anybody, but okay, well, I'll be your friend." And we said, "Okay, how much do we owe you for the room?" And he goes, "Oh, never mind. We always have extra rooms for people who need them." Now that was a random act of kindness, wasn't it? I don't know what we would have done. I'd still be sitting at the side of the road crying, I think. I had no idea what to do. My husband said, I feel really bad. We're not paying you or anything. What can we do? And he said, "I'll tell you what you can do. Sometime when you meet a nice young couple and they need some help, you help them out too." And I thought, whoa, that's a really good idea. And that was an idea that I just had carried around for the rest of my life. When I see somebody that needs some help, I try to help them. And my husband really got that. I can't tell you how many strangers we had sleeping on our couch that he would find somewhere in Santa Barbara or when we lived in Solvang and bring them on home. And I'd say, "We don't know this person." And he'd say, "Remember the motel in Weaverville?" Okay. So we paid back our random act of kindness. But it doesn't take big things. They're little things you guys can do, kids can do. Just fun little things. And things like at school, sometimes if there's a new kid and they don't know anybody and they're sitting by themselves at lunch, what could you do?
Sit with them.
Sit with them. What else could you guys do? What are some acts of kindness, little things you could do? Can you think of anything? What about around your house?
Walk the dog.
Walk the dog for your family. That's a good thing. That's certainly kind for your dog, isn't it?
Feed my cat.
Feed your cat. That certainly would make that cat happy. Anything else? What?
Feed the dog.
You could help feed the dog too.
The cat litter box.
Oh boy, that would really be that's a great random act of kindness to clean the litter box. So you guys have the idea. Yeah, your mom just clapped. And I want to just tell you one other little tiny story that's one of my favorite things about a random act of kindness done by a little boy. This is a story that I heard a long time ago, and it's real short, it's fun. There was an old guy, and he used to go down to the beach every day, just to start his day. One day after a storm, he went down to the beach, and he's walking along, and there's trash all over, there's driftwood, there's kelp, and there's starfish all over the shore because the tide had brought them in. He thought, oh, what a shame, they're going to die. It's really sad. And he looks up in the distance and he sees this little boy. And the little boy's like throwing something in the ocean. So he walks over to the little boy and he says, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" And the little boy goes, "Oh, look at all these starfish. They're out on the sand and they're not going to be able to live, and so I'm throwing them back." And he said, "Honey, I don't need how to tell you this, but there are hundreds of starfish on the beach. You're not going to be able to throw all those starfish back. You know, it's nice, but it's not going to really matter because you're not going to be able to make them live. You can't get them all." So the little boy looks at him and laughs. He goes over and he picks up a starfish and he looks at it and he throws it as hard as he can in the ocean. He turns to the old man and he goes, "Mattered to him." So sometimes we can't help everybody, but we can help some, huh? So off you go. We'll sing you off. Have fun. Banquet Day, a tribute to Mr. Rogers. So as you all come home, and did you know that, John? And we all remember Mr. Rogers. I loved him. This is a community of caring, a community of love and hope. We come together on Sundays because it feels good to be connected, to engage in rituals that bind our hearts more closely to one another. Sharing our personal joys and sorrows is one of the ways we seek to replenish our weary souls and celebrate community. We make time each Sunday for deep listening so we might reflect on the human experiences that shape our lives. Together we celebrate the personal milestones and provide our healing thoughts to those who are in need. Joys and sorrows may be written for the worship associate to read aloud, or they may be spoken into the microphone. Cards can be found inside the hymnals, or there are some at the back of the sanctuary, and Gail has some. If you prefer to share at the microphone, we ask you form a line at this time and wait for the first candle to be lit. Our pastoral care associate, Gail Hubble, is coming forward at this time. If you have a card to be read, you can hold it up and she'll collect it, or you may bring it forward yourself. Any cards? You can stand around there so your back isn't to everybody, but don't fall off.
Spirit, the gathering of spirit. Coming here together, we join the value of our various and delightful insights. Each person's vision increases the whole vision of the congregation. Coming here together, we cast our eyes at the majesty and the warmth within and around us. And we stand halfway small before the extending reaches of the universe, yet in ourselves whirl galaxies of wonder and possibility. Coming from the union of women and men, we affirm our place in the human family. Beneath all differences lies that which unites us. Coming from the earth, we avow our kinship to the land itself, the sea and the creatures. The earth is our home, and the creatures are our cousins. Coming from the pilgrimage of history, we take up our place in this moment. The world and all in it have a need of our ministry. Coming from our homes, we here meld our spirits in the life of this congregation. Let our deeds expand our covenant into a force for greater hope for the greater world. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome. The original title of this sermon was called, or is called, To Get and to Be Gotten. To get and to be gotten. It's about how we come together on these occasions to get something, to receive something. We're here because we know we want to receive something. And while we're here, we end up begotten. That is, we are being held, even while we're holding others. So we come to get and to be gotten. My Unitarian Universalist colleague, Reverend Bruce Marshall, tells how he came across a study that was done by psychologists at Harvard and Yale. And it sheds light on a question that many of us have and that we've lived with for many years, and that is, how does Santa Claus do it? Santa Claus. How does he keep fit year after year and still manage such a breakneck schedule? In the study, 2 groups of nursing home residents, Santa Claus is, after all, no youngster, 2 groups of residents of similar age, socioeconomic status, emotional and physical health were selected, and each person in each group was given a plant. Members of one group were told that the plants was theirs to take care of, and that how or whether it flourished would entirely depend upon their efforts. They were also told that they were competent women and men who should be making decisions for themselves. Those in the other groups were told that their plants would be looked after by the nursing home staff, just as the staff took care of them, because, after all, they were in the home to be cared for. Within a few weeks, the researchers found a noticeable difference between the 2 groups. Those who cared for their own plant showed an increase in emotional and physical well-being and a visible increase in activity levels. 18 months later, the mortality rate of this group was only half that of the others. Very interesting material, I would say, especially when we talk about giving and taking care of, and also being taken care of in this place. Our stewardship campaign is coming up next month, and it would be okay for us to begin to think about this a little bit. We're thinking about giving, and we're thinking about receiving. And we also know that giving enhances our lives. Taking care of others, even a plant, actually enhances our lives, and it connects us with others and even with the world. We are reminded of those who are important to us and who depend on us. So our gifts are in thanks for those who keep us involved in our lives by being there for us to care for, just like those plants in the nursing home. And we have to remember that Santa Claus is not the healthiest person in the world. He is overweight, he smokes, he lives on a diet of milk, which is whole milk, not 2%, and cookies. So how does he do what he does? And I would say it's probably all of that giving and caring and those people depending on him, especially the children, that keeps him a healthy old elf. That fact that he is still healthy after all these years intrigues me. And maybe giving really does have physical as well as spiritual benefits. I recently read a report from the Alban Institute, which is this America's foremost non-denominational research and development organization specifically dedicated to religious congregations. And the Alban people study patterns of behavior in congregation, and especially how the professional ministry and the lay people in congregations can work together to create empowering communities of faith. And one of the findings that they recently report is that many of the younger people who are considering a church community nowadays are coming to the church in a fundamentally different way than in earlier generations of Americans. They are coming to church as consumers. Directly out of the American cultural imperative, which teaches us to be perpetual shoppers. And people today are looking for a church, but they are shopping around, openly browsing, seeking to locate and seize upon the best value. The question seems to be, what can we get from this church? What does this church have to offer us? It's something like looking for what we used to call a gymnasium, and now we call an exercise center or a health club. Yes, it's actually very much like a health club, looking for a health club. The questions are very much the same ones. What kind of exercise machines does the church have which will make me strong and healthy, also called spiritual well-being? How can the church help me lose unwanted weight, also called heavy burdens? How can the church make my heart stronger, also called compassion? How can the church provide me with the added endurance for the long race, also called vision and purpose? The metaphors are endless and absolutely appropriate. Another group which studies American society is headed by Robert Bellah. You may remember him and his book, Habits of the Heart, some years ago, and another later book called The Good Society. He's a University of California in Berkeley professor emeritus. Listen to what he says. The tension in American religion today is whether membership is accepted as having a formative claim on one's very sense of self, as involving a loyalty that can persist through the difficulties, whether the membership is merely instrumental to individual self-fulfillment, like some current concepts of other relationships which can be abandoned as soon as it doesn't meet my needs anymore. That's a pretty strong indictment, and he actually gave those words at the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association. He was talking to us. Does the church exist in the world for any other reason except to meet the needs of the people who go there? Well, let's talk about church and ministry of the church, and about getting and about receiving, and about the ministry of the church as a way that people's needs are met. For instance, over the years, I have had people call me who are looking for a minister to perform their wedding. Actually, they're shopping for the best value. They want everything in the wedding to be just right. As far as that goes, I sometimes think that ministers are just another fixture in the ceremony, like the wedding cake or the candelabras or the balloons or the flowers at the reception. I used to tell them that my fee would be whatever the cake costs. But nowadays, people won't pay that much for a minister. Anyway, they choose to employ me or not to employ me. So we have people who come to this congregation and many other congregations who are shopping the same way as they were shopping for a minister. And they usually have a list of requirements based on what their needs are. How is the children's religious education program? How are the sermons? How long are the sermons? What kind of coffee do you serve after the service? Or do you serve coffee after the service? You need to think about that, folks. For a Unitarian church not to have coffee after the service is a great big deal. It might be in the Independent next week. We don't know. That's an announcement. So be sure to talk to Pat. Where are you, Pat? Yeah, and it's something we should all think about. We got to keep up our image. So they say, yeah, so what kind of coffee do you serve? And according to one survey, the most important question that is asked when people are shopping for a church, especially by mothers, is, how clean are the bathrooms? Perfectly good idea. And I want to say that all these things are important. They really are. And I think about this a lot, especially in regards to this congregation here at Live Oak. Is this what we are doing? Is this a kind of interaction that we're having here within and among this community? Do we think of ourselves as a product, as a commodity that people can choose to purchase or not? Do we present ourselves that way, that we are a thing that you can pick up and somehow make your life better by holding it next to you? In our fervent quest to grow into a viable, self-sustaining congregation, is this the way we want to be? These are disturbing questions for me, and I'm disturbed by this whole idea of consumerism because I do not think of the church as a commodity. I think of the church as a community, and a community is not something you purchase. You cannot buy community. You cannot come into this church and pay for its services. The church has nothing to do with paying or buying or getting. That original title, to get or to be gotten, the origin of the word get is, as usual, from the Greek, and it means to hold, to contain. The word begotten comes from the same word as get. Get is in there. But the connotation shifts over to the notion of being held. And that is the essence of what I'm talking about today. To be gotten. Another word of interest here is the word investment. How about investing in the church? Investment comes from words which refer to putting on clothes, as in a vest. And there is a connotation of sacred clothing, as in vestments. To invest is to surround, to envelop, to completely cover. And when you think about it, even from the standpoint of stock market investors, what we really want from our investments is a kind of protection, a kind of garment that covers. Yes, that could be what the church is also. You have heard me say so many times that the congregation is forgiving. It's not forgetting. It's not forgetting. We don't come here to forget. It is forgiving. It is forgiving. Forgiving. And that's what we are all about. And when you come to the congregation, the community of faith, you're coming to a place which is forgiving in all the meanings of that word. I'm not saying that the church doesn't offer anything of value to people, because it surely does. The church offers wonderful gifts to all the people. And this church in particular, this congregation in particular, offers a multitude of gifts to the people here, and I think even to the people of our community. Live Oak Unitarian Universalist congregation gathers purposefully in order to provide a safe, supportive, responsible community of people who want to validate and affirm each other and each other's life stories, and to create a network of mutual caring support as we continue on our individual spiritual journeys and our collective spiritual journey. That is quite an offering, I think, that we can make, but you cannot buy it. This is a place which happens not when you buy it, but when you give it. It is for giving. It is the collection of giving from all of these people, which not only supports this place, but actually creates it. It creates its very essence, its very mission, its very vision in the world. The church is a shining beacon in the world, proclaiming that the governing principle in human relations is the principle of love, which always seeks the welfare of others and never seeks to hurt or destroy. The church has much to offer. Today, there is a pink slip in your order of service, and it's not the ordinary pink slip that says you're fired. It's a pink slip which has a list of activities which you must look at. And actually, they're not activities, they're gifts. They're gifts that you can give to this congregation. And we want you to, before you leave today, take that paper and fill it out. There's a basket out there, and put it in there. The ministry and operations team is working right now, and one of our works is to get things done around here. And we look out and we see there are things to do. There are steps to fix and paints to paint, and on and on and on and on. And it would be so helpful to us on the Mo team to find out what you can give to this congregation, what you can contribute. Mostly we hear about contributing money, and we need those good old dollars to keep the place warmed up and lighted up and wound up. No, that's true. But the contribution we really need from you, the gift that we really need, is you. You are the gift. And all of the amazing talents that you have, all the amazing interests that you have. You can come here, and if you're interested in drama, let's say, or in music, or in artwork, you can come here, and we encourage you to give that interest to the congregation as a contribution. We need your presence here. We need your being here. And I think we need your life here. When we have a Path to Membership class, I always tell people that there are requirements for membership here. And we know that some of them are written in the bylaws and that kind of thing. But the biggest requirement that I ask people when they get ready to think about joining is be here. Just show up if you can. It would be so great to look out at this congregation and see every single member of this congregation here. Woody Allen says, 98% of life is showing up. Just show up. Just be here. And on the other hand, it's somewhat discouraging and even disturbing to look out and see just a few people here, and people are going elsewhere for whatever reason. The life energy that comes from you as an individual, sitting in that chair right here, right now this morning, that life energy is the lifeblood of this congregation. And imagine what happens with that life energy when you spread it around through the gifts that you make to the congregation. These are words that are printed on the back of your order of service, but they're words that at my old church in Seattle, we used whenever we took up the offering on Sunday morning. And it says, our church is a community which is composed of none other than ourselves. It comes from the life of our lives. Its resources are also ours. Its worth is entirely created by contributions of worth. We give to it that we can give, variously and collectively. We are the church, and our support, that which we can give, is its life. That which we can give. That is not a specified amount, either in dollars or human energy. It's entirely within your own vision of what that church is and how it can be established. So what is it that you can give which will support this place and will in fact give its very life? Whatever. We give thanks for these living joys and sorrows, those which were spoken and those which were left unspoken. We remember those of our number who are not here today. Their joys and sorrows we also take into our own lives. May we never cease to remember and be glad that out of all the world, we can share our lives with each other. These words from St. Paul in the first chapter, the first Corinthians chapter 13. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and knowledge, and if I have faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, and hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends. Prophecies will come to an end. Languages will cease. Knowledge will come to an end. We know in part, we prophesy in part, but when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. This we see face to face. Now I know in part, then I will know fully. Now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love. I would like to invite you to sing with me on page 1031 in this book.